Hi, this is Siddhi. Today we are going to talk about play and how play develops in autism. Okay, it's important that you read my Substack article in addition to this so that you can keep track of what information I'm giving, because again, there are a lot of things that are being covered in this video. Okay, so first question that we need to ask ourselves is, what is play? Okay, so play is basically first aspect of play is for exploring. So when a child or an adult or any individual, when they play for the first time, they are exploring. They will look at that thing, they will check out that thing with their eyes, they will touch it, they will toss it, they will watch other people play with it. So basically play on the first in the first stage is exploring with your senses. And if you see everybody, anything that they people assume as play is basically an exploration of a sensation. There's no direction to it. Okay, the second part of play is that play is a voluntary process. So it's not something like, no one takes you to play. It's basically, if I want to play, then I will play with that particular thing. If I want to play with a person, then I will play with that particular person. And how do I decide that? Is because when I explored it on the initial stage, I enjoyed it, I had fun. So that's the reason why I decided to voluntarily play with that toy or person or that activity. Third, play by itself as an inherent testing aspect to it. So this is something that a lot of the times adults don't see about play. If you remember, when you were children, you didn't so the whole fun about play was to basically explore what different things that you could do with a particular thing. So play is all about testing different things, breaking it, looking inside, putting it together, trying it again, throwing it, looking at somebody else doing it, trying it yourself. So it's supposed to have a aspect of trying different variations to it. Okay, the next aspect of play is supposed to be, it's supposed to be relaxing. Okay, play is supposed to be fun. After you play, you're supposed to feel good about yourself. All right, last is that, which is connected to this in previous points, is that play is a voluntary process. It's something that a person chooses to do. Okay, and you will see how these aspects are important when you look at play in terms of autism. All right, now let's look at how play develops. All right, so there is play, like we talked about development. Everything in development happens in the form of stages. So play also develops in the form of stages. Okay, so the first stage of play is what is called a sensory play. Okay, sensory play is basically it's basically the stage where the child explores his environment and the toys and the things with his different senses. Okay, so the different senses are basically your mouth, your eyes, your touch, your joint, your movement, and sensory toys would be basically things like these, like pom-poms, light balls, spinners, different types of balls, tents. Okay, so this is where a lot of parents will come up and ask me that, Siddhi, what if the child mouths? Well, if the child mouths, it's all right because he's doing sensory play. Okay, the only point you need to keep in mind is that you allow the child to do sensory play with the appropriate toy. So say if he mouths these balls or he mouths this shiny ball, that's not going to harm him. Okay, it's if he has a tendency to eat, then you obviously don't want to give the smaller balls. But if he mouths any of these, that's not going to cause a problem. He mouths the spinner, that's not going to cause a problem. And this stage is something that is very common in autistic children. Okay, another form of sensory play is basically these sort of toys. So you have, say for example, you have, so if you see over here, that's a blanket. So that's a weighted blanket. When I used to take in-person sessions, I used to have those, because those are beautiful. Okay, they're heavy. Many of my kids would just love to go and sit under them, and I could play peekaboo with them, or they would love to kick the blankets when they're lying down under it. Then obviously trampoline, everybody knows. Beanbags are another things that kids love, because they get that pressure while they're rolling around and moving around. They can pull it, they can push it. Again, another example of a toy, that these are basically bar toys you can use. The children could toss it, throw, bite it, mouth it, and it doesn't hurt. You can just wash it off and bring it back again. Okay. Another type of toys are like these rattles, squishies. Okay, these again, this is a bit difficult, because if you put it in the mouth, some kids tend to sort of bite it off, but you get different variations of them, some which don't really have that squiggly things outside, so they are good for squishing and putting in the mouth, and watching bubbles form at the other end, that sort of stuff. Similarly, other types of sensory toys are like clay, grains box. Many kids love grains box. Water play, water play is something that literally common across kids. Now when I mean water play, I don't mean basically put them in the pool, but basically give them like a bucket of bucket of water, and just put some bad toys in it, and they'll enjoy playing with that. Then you have theraputti, which is not clay. Theraputti is different from clay. Theraputti has different tightnesses, and it's typically used by OTs. Okay. Then you have shaving foam, clay, squishy toys, balloon. Many kids love playing with balloon. They bounce it in the air and everything. So these are basically what you would call as sensory toys. So this is the first stage of play, and many children on the autistic spectrum are able to do this sort of play. Most of the children on the autistic spectrum are able to do these sort of play. Okay. The second stage of play is what is called as cause and effect play. Okay, so once the child has sort of come out of that stage of just exploring with the senses, now he can understand the concept that I do something and there is a reaction. Okay, and there are toys for that too. So if you see like these sort of xylophones that you have, or musical toys you have, or this sort of toy where you press from the top and the balls pop up from the bottom. Okay, these are what are or you have the spinners. Okay, different types of spinners you have, or the musical toy where you pull the string and the rabbit plays music, or you have bubbles. Okay, so these are cause and effect toys. Okay, where you do something, the child understands that you do something, and once you do something, some reaction comes in, and the child is able to do that thing repeatedly and get the reaction. Okay, the third stage of play is what is called as basic pretend play. Okay, so basic pretend play is basically where the child will use the same sort of material that he uses. So say for example, his own cup, his own brush, his own towel, his own comb, his own soap box. He will use it on himself when he's not eating, when he's not drinking. He'll pretend to do it, but the object is actually his. And this is where you will see they will start offering the cup to the mummy or the carer, to do false drinking. They will do pretend brushing. So basically, if you see, this is where initial levels of social interaction start coming in, and the child is reflecting whatever he or she experiences. So he or she experiences brushing, bath, dressing up, changing clothes, and everything, and he'll do the same thing on himself, on other people, and on a doll too. Okay, but the key point to remember over here is that basic pretend play, for it to develop, you have to have imitation. So you have to have object imitation. You also have to understand some amount of back and forth between a carer, because it's an emerging social play. Okay. The next stage is what is called as complex story play. This is where the child will basically use imaginary, create imaginary situations. Oh, I'm going to the mall, I'm, going to the, I'm playing chore police, I am going to the doctor. This is where you have the complex stories going in. Animals, with animals, they'll play and they'll be like, oh, this is a hunter, he's hunting him, he's bitten him, he has, this guy's got hurt, what do I do with it? All of that stuff starts coming over here. Okay. And if you see, in complex social story stage, you have to have dynamic attending. You cannot go off and just you know uh, you cannot just go off and do just one thing repeatedly. You will see that the child will basically recreate whatever he's experiencing in life. So complex social story play is something actually used by people, by counselors, to understand the inner world of the child below 6 years of age, because below 6 years of age, children are not considered to be reliable to talk about their internal thoughts and feelings. So even among normal typical children, we typically counselors will typically use complex story play and pretend play as a way to understand the child's experiences inside. So it's a fairly high level ability, and to achieve that ability, you have to have attending, okay, which is dynamic. It's not rigid and patterned. You have to be able to remember episodes in totality and in sequence to be able to do it. Okay, so it's a fairly complex high level program ability that the child shows. And after around the time that you have complex play coming up, you will also have group games coming up. Now this is where you will see that there are two types of social that comes in. Like with basic pretend play, you will have what you would have simple around this stage. You would have simple games, like children will do pakda pakdi, like two children pakda pakdi. They will do basic hide and seek that is there. Okay, they will enjoy that sort of stuff. With complex, at this stage you will see the child being able to do group games, like playing pakda pakdi in a group, playing hide and seek in a group, playing land and water games. And why is that important? Because this is a very high level ability. Here the child has to be able to attend to multiple people at a given point of time. He or she has to be able to follow sequences in a dynamic format, problem solve at a given point of time, and plan what to do to execute. So a simple thing like, say for example, pakda pakdi seems like a very simple thing, okay, but if you're playing with 5 to 6 kids, you would realize that you have to scan all of the children that are there over there, and then you have to watch all of their body languages, and then you have to try to guess which person you want to catch. You want to decide which person you want to catch, and then you want to try to catch the person without the person realizing that you are catching him, so basically fooling his with your body language. And if the person changes the realizes your ploy and sort of runs off, then you're supposed to immediately change and check out who is closest by and try to catch. Now you see how many steps are involved in this process, right? So it's not as easy as it seems when you think about, oh fine, we just have to play. Okay, so these are typically the stages of group play, of how play develops. Now, what are the mistakes parents and carers make when they're teaching play with autistic children? Okay, so the first mistake that parents and carers make when they teach play is they forget that play is a inherently child-led skill. It is not a adult-led skill, and this is literally the biggest mistake that parents and carers make, and many professionals also don't understand this part. Okay, keep in mind that when we talked about play initially, it is it is self motivated, it is voluntary, it is supposed to be, what the child wants to do. So that's the first mistake carers make when they carers and therapists make when they start working on play. Second mistake that carers and you know parents make is bypassing stages. Okay, so now if you think about it, most of the, and this is where you'll see that the therapist, the speech therapist, the special educator, the ABA therapist will start with pretend play. All right, but we talked about it. A simple pretend play like this one, okay, requires you to be able to imitate. Okay, it requires you to be able to attend to people voluntarily, and it requires you to have interest in a back and forth. Okay, if you don't have those skills developed separately, then you would never have the pretend play being voluntary. It will be a task. Okay. Similarly, say for example, many speech therapists will use play as a way to work on language. And one of the things that they'll do is they will, create complex stories. Okay. And again, they will, they will create, they will use miniature toys and they'll play with it and everything, but the child has not brought that ability from his environment. It's something that the therapist is creating. Okay, so that's the reason why. And why does it happen? Because you have not actually worked on attending to information in the environment. So okay, I'm playing mall, but if my child has never placed language or attended to the sequences that happen when I go to the mall, then how am I supposed to understand the concept of applying that when I'm playing? Okay, secondly, if my child has not still gone through the stage of using mock real objects for play, how is he going to understand that this is what the person is supposed to use? Okay, so this whole thing, and if my child is not able to voluntarily generate sequences by experience, through experience, and execute it, how am I supposed to expect it as play? So again, even if the child learns to play, it becomes a task. It is not something that they actually generate. And keep in mind, one of the basic rules of play is that it is a generated thing. The child generates it. It is not something that the adult teaches. So the child has to have the ability to be able to generate. So if you see, many of my kids are able to do it. Why are they able to do it? They're able to do it because I use eclectic techniques, right? So I will make a point that I will work on commenting, attending, visual schedules, giving them sequences, teaching them to interact with people productively through communication. And then they are able to form the connection. Once they're able to form the connections, then they will by themselves go to pretend play. Okay, they will by themselves go to elaborate pretend play. Okay, and that's the tricky part. Like with autistic kids, there are some autistic kids who will show complex storytelling, but you will see that they will have a rigid script. And if you talk to the parents, they will tell you that, oh, he doesn't like it being changed, he likes the same thing. So I remember there were a couple of kids that I had seen, and the parent was very happy. Oh, she does pretend play. And I'm like, what kind of pretend play does he do? Let me see. And it was literally a recreation of a Peppa Pig video that the child has seen. Exact recreation. And the point was that the child did not want any changes in that. He just wanted the same thing in it. Okay. He did not allow any adult into it. I have another kid who does pretend play, but over there he engages with other people in it, but he doesn't like it if those people change anything. He wants the opposite person also to do the same thing, say the same thing, do the same thing. Okay, so again, it seems like they have reached pretend play, but they've not. They've skipped steps. Because they've skipped steps, they have not picked up the skills that are required of attending to people, attending to the environment, understanding sequences, thinking, changing, being able to problem solve. They've not been able to do it. So since they're not able to do any of that stuff, that play becomes like a script. It's rigid. Okay. That's the reason why I said that even if there are multiple times I have children who are supposed to be typical, doing well and are not showing any signs of being on the spectrum. But if you see their play, you can actually pick up their, autistic traits from the play, because the play is essentially a culminating point of everything that you have learned. Okay. The other issue that mistake that a lot of people do is they block the first two stages of sensory play and cause and effect play. Okay. There is a mistaken belief that people have is that play has to be productive. Sorry, but the whole concept of play being productive is a very adult thought process, and it's something that since it's an adult thought process, and it's a thought process that corporates have developed. Okay, I am 47, right? So when I was younger, at that time we didn't really have that much, of a concept of toys. We essentially played with whatever we got most of the time. Okay, and I'm sure people before me had lesser toys than that. Okay, so does that mean none of us played? No, we also played, but we played with different things. We made things. We brought up. We explored our environments. Like, say for example, when I was younger, I used to play a lot with you know flowers. I used to play a lot with leaves. So basically it's you can create. The whole point of play is supposed to be not productive. It is supposed to be exploring, thinking, and having fun. And if you saw, sensory play can also be fun. Okay, so that's one of the factors that people tend to forget, because sensory play, cause and effect play, is technically covers the baseline factors of play. Means it is something. If you give sensory play to the child will explore voluntarily. If you because he likes it, he's going to engage with it voluntarily. He'll try different things with it, and at the end of the play he's going to feel relaxed and he's going to feel happy. Okay, so essentially sensory play and cause and effect play literally works for most of the children on the autistic spectrum, and by blocking that, you're actually blocking a key way that the child can engage and play. Okay, the next part is ignoring the fun aspect. Okay, so this is something that I learned. Again, it's a mistake that a lot of parents make, is that it's connected to the productive part of the play of play being productive. Play required to be productive. Play is supposed to be just fun. All right, so if it is fun for me to spin a spinner, great. That makes me, if it's fun, I would do that. If it's fun for me to watch toss balls around and watch them bouncing around, that's fun. If it's fun for me to flip on keys and mouth them, that is fun. Okay, so you cannot go off and you know ignore the fun aspect of it. Play has to be fun for it to be, for it to achieve the goal that it is supposed to achieve. Okay, having said that, there's a small portion of children who are very resistant to thinking and have difficulty with planning, generating plans, and they require ready-made plans. Okay, so those are the children who may play sensory play, but they will not really they will not be able to explore through a sensory play. They'll keep on doing it in a repetitive manner. Okay, so those children would benefit with hobbies. Okay, so you will see them by the age of like around 5 6, you will see that you have given them sensory play, but the sensory play has never sort of gone beyond a certain point of time. They do the same thing constantly, which doesn't mean that you stop it. You still keep it, but what you can do is you can mold it. Okay, so like, say for example, many children who like clay and tactile input, they like pottery. Many children who like musical instruments, musical games, cause and effect toys, they will like musical instrument. Many children who like structured puzzles and everything, they will like Lego. Okay, so it is possible to take the play and mold it into a hobby. Why should you mold it into a hobby? Because then the child who doesn't have the ability to generate variations will get variations in a ready-made format, which he can go and repeat and work with by himself. Okay, The other error that people typically make is they confuse play and stimming. Okay, and that's also the main reason why many carers, I feel, they tend to avoid giving play, sensory play to their children, because they think everything is stimming. So play by definition is something that the child will show interest in voluntarily. Okay, when they do it, they will they will allow other people to step into their play. Okay, they will imitate what the other people are showing, okay, voluntarily, which is something that is very important. So take for example, I when I play, when I work on play techniques with children, I will typically have things like those bouncy balls, or pom poms and stuff like that when I'm playing with my children. Okay, so when I do that, I actually don't have to go off and try to I don't have to go off and try to engage my child, because the child is already looking at my toys. All right. So if I show a couple of variation, the child will attend to it by myself, by themselves. But say for example, the child has a stim of closing and opening the door. Okay. If I block that, and that is a repetitive behavior, there's no variation in it. Okay, and if I block it, it will cause anxiety in the child. Okay, so that's the difference. Second is that a stim inherently comes out of anxiety. Okay, it's the when a child stims, it is basically the child is feeling dysregulated with his environment, and he wants to gain control, and the way he gains control is by stimming, by doing a controlled repetitive behavior. It could be making sounds, it could be you know making sounds, it could be spinning a toy, it could be rocking, it could be any of those aspects to gain control. Okay, and the main part is, when the child stims, the child is not going to want you to interrupt with it. So there is a difference between play and stim. Okay, the next error that a lot of carers do is educational toys. Educational toys are by definition educational toys. Okay, so they are for education. Okay, and most of the educational toys have a way, there's a right way to play, which is not what play is. Play is supposed to be inherently exploratory by nature. So there is no right or wrong way. So there is no right or wrong way to bounce a ball, there is no right or wrong way to play with shaving foam, there is no right or wrong way to play with grades. Okay, so educational toys, that's why I actually like to put them on the same level as stimming toys, because there is a way to play and you just do the same thing repeatedly, you don't change it. Okay, the other error that a lot of parents and carers do is they give the toys, all of the toys together. So this is something I learned after I started online sessions, when I watched all of the parents' houses, and I was like, okay, why are so many toys outside together? Okay, I why? Because the thing is, a spectrum kid, when they get overwhelmed, they actually don't engage with anything. Okay, for that matter, even normal children, if you give all of the toys out together, they don't engage with all of the toys. They just pick one or two toys. But spectrum kids are worse in that way. The moment you give a lot of things out, they will just pick one or two things and they'll just ignore the remaining things. Okay, so you need to make sure that you make small packets of different toys. So you saw the list, pictures I gave. Now I normally sort them out, like I'll put all the pom poms together, I'll put all the balls together. At a given point of time, I will just give one toy the child asks for. And this also creates an opportunity for me to understand what is my child liking, and for the child to understand what does he like. And this creates an opportunity for communication, because instead of just saying toys, now he can learn to say pom poms, balls, what does he like more, what does he like less, so that not giving all of the toys is important. Okay, next is not teaching to play in a regulated manner. So this is a more autistic issue, and many parents struggle with this issue, and this comes in a very two extreme format. So there are some children who will basically not play at all for more than half a minute to 1 minute, and there are some children who will play with a particular thing for hours at a stretch. So in both the cases, you need to teach the child to play in a regulated manner, and this is where basically you will give the sensory toy to the child, or the cause and effect toy to the child. And you, if the child is somebody who does not explore and play for a longer period of time, you will put a timer and you will tell the time your child you have to play for that long. And if the child is somebody who plays for ages, for longest time with just one particular thing, you tell the child you can only play for a particular time. So basically both the cases you will use timer to stretch the time or reduce the time depending on what is required. Okay. Lastly, what parents typically don't do is they don't create an area for play. Okay, now this is a more Indian thing. Most of the Western countries, when I see them, you will have a toy room, you will have a playroom. Indians most of the time have the whole house as their play for the child, for their children, and that's a mistake. Because if you are allowing the child to play all over your house, then the child basically, again, it fails to give them a target. It creates the whole house as a toy area. Okay. But if you create an area, either by putting a baby gate or training the child to play on a mat or training the child to play in a room, then what will happen is the child will only play in that area, and that will essentially preemptively cut out most of the challenging behaviors that I see with parents. Like parents come up and tell me that, he throws things out of the balcony. He goes into the kitchen and he starts eating. He is running all around the house. All of these can be blocked if you just create an area and give the child the thing that you want, that he wants, in that area only, nowhere else. Okay. So the end of it is that keeping one at the end, one needs to keep in mind that play is inherently supposed to be fun, and there is no right and wrong way of playing. Okay, it's basically supposed to be what the child wants. So say for example, if the child likes to play with keys, yeah, obviously you don't give him the real keys, but you can easily give, keys that you don't use, that the child can play with. Okay, so instead of saying that I will not give something to the child because the child wants it and is asking for, it is asking for it, but I don't want to give it to him, I generally tell parents that, you give a alternate form of it. Don't give the real thing, just redirect the child. If the child likes throwing, instead of telling him don't throw A, tell him throw B. It is more easier to control the behavior in that way rather than just blocking and rewarding, because when you block, you are not giving them something to fill in. Okay, but if you redirect and give something else, you're actually giving something else which is appropriate, which fills in the gap that the child is trying to fill in over there. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you.